Hello, and welcome to the exhibit at the Indian Community Center. My name's Frank Howard. I'm a local lawyer here in Rochester, and I've been a practicing Buddhist since my early 20s. Buddhism is the greatest gift of India to the world. And I say that because it is remarkable in that these profound teachings and this path to peace and understanding has been transmitted out of India. India inculcated it for 1,500 years and is the birthplace of the Buddhas and the birthplace of Buddhism, its teachings. But it's been transmitted to cultures wildly different expression, different languages, different cultural settings, and yet the essence of the Buddha's teachings has remained, both to the Chinese world, with Japan, Korea, also Southeast Asia, and now, for the past 100 years or more, to the West. It stems from the lived experience of Prince Siddhartha, an Indian prince living about 570 years before Christ. Tibetans say actually 800 years BC, but nonetheless these differences are not too critical. This prince who lived this remarkable life of pleasure really had a material situation unrivaled, explored all the wonderful things of this material sensual world, and yet was unsatisfied, was motivated to find out the cause of suffering. And if he could find the cause, perhaps he could eliminate the effect of dissatisfaction, suffering, anguish, all these pains to which the human heart is prone. He left his palace and his wonderful, wonderful situation, his wife and child, newborn child, his kingdom to be. And he embarked on teachings with the highest teachers of his day, equaling their accomplishment, being offered to succeed them in their spiritual institution and practice, and yet rejected that because he still had not found the answer to suffering. He then embarked on his own, practicing the most ascetic path, it's believed, that's unrivaled in its rigorous nature and intensity. He did this for 6 years. He attracted 5 students who practiced with him. And then at a crisis, he was bathing ritually in a river. He had been fasting. He was so weak, he almost drowned. He managed to get himself out of the river, and it occurred to him that this path of denying the self was also a dead end, just as indulging the self had been when he was in the palace. He remembered at that time an experience he had had as a 13-year-old boy. His father, the king, was holding a plowing festival in the spring, and the 13-year-old boy watched as the men struggling with the oxen, plowing, turned over the earth, exposing worms cut in half, insects, and all the birds that descended to eat on this. And he was moved by this panoply of suffering, that there was no escape from this dissatisfaction and this unsatisfactory realm. He went off and sat under a rose apple tree, apart from the crowds, and spontaneously entered into a samadhi, a natural state, an experience of the nature of mind, a solid, you might say, stable mind, instead of the flitting mind that most of us experience from moment to moment. His father, wondering where he was, went looking for him, found him, aroused him from his samadhi. And now in this crisis, 35 years later, 30 years later, he remembered that experience. And in that discovered the middle way, the path between the extremes of self-indulgence and self-abnegation, the path between the extremes of eternalism, believing that a creator God just creates everything, or a nihilistic view that we're just protoplasm mindlessly mutating. Nothing matters. He then walked something like 100 kilometers to a tree in the depths of a forest in Bihar. Religious ficiosus, the religious fig, he sat under it for one night, vowing not to move until he had discovered truth. And it said, he went through all sorts of temptations during the night, vanquishing them all, maintaining his meditation. And then it said, as he gazed at the morning star, Venus, rising above the horizon just before dawn, he became perfectly enlightened. He remained in the neighborhood of this tree in the jungle for 7 weeks, 49 days. He contemplated whether to teach or not, because he saw that human beings are so deluded, so immersed in their own selfishness, their self-grasping, and that even the reality appears to correspond to this self-grasping.